When I was a kid, I had a few games I just could not beat despite putting hours and hours into them. Some of these were just badly designed games like Wizard of Oz on the SNES. Others were just really tough like Super Castlevania 4, which I then would later play as an adult and still had a rough go of things until I finally won. And as I mentioned in my review of Claymates, it was difficult for me to understand the full thrust of why in some cases. It's not like Tiny Snek understood the fundamentals of game and level design or anything. Gaming was just something I did and do a lot. And when my parents got me a particular SNES game, it took me a long time to figure out where I was going wrong. Primarily in the fact that I was playing BattleToads and Battlemaniacs on the Super Nintendo. Yes, really. And while the game certainly had its charms, especially the glorious reveling in 90s punk culture, it didn't take long at all for a grown-up Snek to realize that the mimetic difficulty stemmed more from just changing genres every few levels and upping the amount of cheap instant death gimmicks each level employed. Now, eventually, grown-up Snek did beat the game, but I can't say it was particularly satisfying. I could see the obvious tricks they use, and my absolute loathing of lives as a mechanic is well documented, but what if they took the core concept from the actually good beat-em-up bits and made the whole game that instead? Would that make for a better gameplay experience? Let's find out. Join me for a closer look at 2020's BattleToads. Greetings everyone, this is the Hipster Snek, and today we'll be taking a close look at the reboot of the meme game BattleToads, simply titled BattleToads. Lots of creativity burned on that title for sure. Released in August of 2020 for the Xbox One and PC via Steam, it was developed by Dlala Studio? Dlala? How the heck am I supposed to pronounce that? Never mind. The story takes place in-game much the same way as out, with the Toads having been locked away for 26 years since their last outing, which was actually the BattleToads arcade machine. That's a thing. Anyway, after beating up some bad guys and patting themselves on the backs, a race of aliens find the Toads sealed in an underground bunker. When they emerge from what was essentially a very elaborate hoax to keep them thinking that they were heroes, the Toads, Pimple, Rash, and Zitz, at first reluctantly accept that their glory days are over and take on mundane daily jobs. This cues up a rather hilarious and mercifully brief minigame segment where you play out this humdrum routine until Rash can take it no longer. He then, in a fit of manic desperation, discovers the location of their old arch-nemesis, the Dark Queen, and talks the others into accompanying him to find her, fully determined to pummel her anew and reclaim their lost stardom. However, the Dark Queen is found to be utterly defanged, courtesy of strange alien entities called the Tonians, who stole her power away. They then agree to, temporarily at least, put their old grudges aside and liberate the universe from the Tonians' influence. And before we move on from the story overview, I have to give them mad props. For a series that has almost never had a plot line more complex than one of our friends was kidnapped, go beat up the Dark Queen to get them back, it was actually a fairly elaborate set of cutscenes and a lot of character dialogue. Each chapter has specific focus on one character at a time, like Zitz and his insecurities as team leader and sharing that responsibility with people who might outshine him, Rash's obsessive desire to be adored by the public, and Pimple coping with deep-seated rage, meeting some hippie aliens, and learning to channel his feelings constructively. This is all played for comedy, of course, as the game revels in, I don't really know what it's called, but it's a very modern style of comedy. That sort of irreverent, quippy sort of comedy that half the audience seems to chuckle at but never full-on guffaw, and half seem to detest, but it seems to be the style of the hour. What do we even call that? But I found it endearing at least, and while I didn't belly laugh at anything in particular, it did make me smile from time to time, so I guess I liked it fine. Graphically, the game is actually hand-drawn, and it looks like it in the best way, which on its own is impressive. Everything is absolutely silky smooth, from the Toads to the enemies to everything decorating the stages. This might be because any given animation only has one possible animation loop, thus limiting the strain of development, but each of them still looks amazing and no one can take that from them. Even the way the three heroes walk across the screen is just rotten with personality, with Rash having an overly confident strut and Pimple visibly lumbering with his upside-down triangular physique. It shows that a lot of thought went into every detail. Also noteworthy is the homage to the speed bike levels, but with the camera pointed at the Toads' backs where we can actually see the obstacles incoming. Almost like I've always repeatedly stated that you can't see far enough ahead of you in 2D to make going fast a good option, but hey, I digress. It's really masterfully done, and the love and attention drip off everything you encounter, with special mention being owed to the larger-than-life boss fights. And music-wise, the soundtrack is good. I never caught myself humming it after the fact, but it sets the mood well and I enjoyed it in context. The sound effects are solid and I enjoyed the slapsticky effects used when mercilessly pummeling enemies into the ground. Just really high-quality stuff. But where the game really shines is in its own voice casting. It comes off like every actor in the cast was just really into the project, really owning their characters. Zitz, the leader of the Toads, was voiced by Ryan Ridley. Rash, the one with shades, is done by Eric Bauza. Pimple, the big guy, is performed by Echo Kellum, and the Dark Queen by Soban Hewlett. Apologies for any failure on my part to pronounce those correctly, I gave it my best shot. But the important thing is everyone's bringing their A-game, regardless as to whether or not you particularly care for the script. They all bounce off each other so naturally, it gives the characters whole new depths no prior game had bothered to explore before. If they made an animated series based on this, I would deeply hope that they would be able to get the same cast to reprise these roles.
Wait! Stay calm. You're a queen. You're unflappable. Suck my frigging butt, you backstabbing punks! Chug my dump truck, you stinky wimps! Beep, beep! Garbage butt backing up! I hate the BattleToads.
Hey, Queen, correct me if I'm wrong. Earlier, did I hear you scream that we stink?
What? No, I was talking about the cattle toads. Like you guys, but cattle. They stink.
My only complaint is a particular hacking minigame which I was terrible at. So I heard my toad, Zitz in my case, mumbling to himself the same stock lines over and over again as I tried to solve the puzzle. And no, offering me a chance to skip said puzzle is not the same as solving it, so I toughed it out until I got it. I mean, I appreciate the offer, but I'm a stubborn old hand at these things, and by all that is good, I am not gonna let it beat me, repetitious mumbling toad or no. Now, gameplay-wise, imagine the early BattleToads games if they got rid of all that extraneous garbage and kept it to the primarily beat-em-up roots. You know, the good levels that you could actually play instead of the bad bits. The dev team decided that embracing this idea as the core gameplay was the right decision, and it turns out they were correct. And they have the game focus almost exclusively on aggressive, briskly paced encounters with some small puzzle-solving bits interspersed throughout. The game can be played with anywhere between 1 and 3 players in co-op mode, each either swapping between or manning a toad to call their own. Interestingly enough, if a toad is knocked out, giving them time without losing all 3 will result in them eventually reviving and becoming playable again. A nice show of mercy to newcomer players. On top of that, there's actually a difficulty select, which will allow you to scale the experience for however you enjoy it the most. And the combat mechanics are very fluid and intuitive, with flurries of mixed fast and heavy attacks and a charged heavy attack for guard breaking, and then a few tricks that the toads can execute using their long sticky tongues in order to lasso enemies, and then a limitless supply of chewing gum they can spit out to briefly stun them. And I must say the co-op play in particular is just divine. Pounding heads with your friends is just such a unique and delightful experience that only this genre can so masterfully encapsulate. Not to say that it stays there exclusively. As said, there's a litany of mini-games ranging in quality and severity. One among them being Toad Shambo, a game of rock, paper, scissors the toads use in order to settle disputes amongst themselves, and the winner of which actually doesn't matter as the game will go on regardless. Or the aforementioned speeder bike homage, or even a space shooter segment which I found immensely gratifying. It shows that a lot of care went into the overall design of the game, and they tried to spice up the gameplay in new and interesting ways. All in all, while it may be a little repetitive at times, it's solid, an enjoyable experience that just gets better the more toads you have fighting at your side. Now, if I were to ding it, mostly it would be that some of the gimmicks hang around for longer than they really should. Looking at you, electrified wet floor segment. And not every joke was a winner, but the game is full of jokes, so that just goes without saying. Honestly, I just want more, and given that the game concludes with a cliffhanger ending, implying the story has only just begun, means that we may very well get more. But only time will tell. All told, how is BattleToads 2020? It's really good. A frenetic couch co-op beat-em-up action game in an era where those are all too scarce. And before you even ask, yes, I am definitely keeping my eye on the upcoming Ninja Turtles throwback title. This game is just a breath of fresh air. It's entertaining and the price is right, just $20 full price on Steam. It's the best Battletoads game there's ever been, for both someone trying them for the first time and returning vets looking for some old school goodness. And that's the final word on this Snek Suite. This has been the Battle Snek. Which Toad is your favorite? Leave a comment down below telling me. Mine's Rash. Also, do you prefer the new Dark Queen or the old? And if you liked today's episode, be sure to smash hit that like button so I know. You can also tap the subscribe and bell icons too for more like this every week. I'm always putting out something, be it obscure reviews, Indie X, Snek Talks, Let's Plays, and even the new YouTube home of the Tomodachi Bros podcast, where my closest bros and I get together to review anime, movies, and more. So keep coming back each week for more like this 5 days a week, and I will see you there.